Hi and welcome to Module 2. This module is going to be about a month in length, and it's going to cover books, newspapers, magazines, kind of what we would consider the early forms of mass communication. As we move along, we oftentimes think of radio, TV, internet, maybe YouTube, other types of things, video games. But the earliest forms of mass communication were, sort of the printed word, where you could take something, write it, reproduce it quickly, and get it out to a mass or large audience and communicate with them. Then you came with sort of being able to print that onto cheap paper with newspapers, and then eventually the creation of magazines that perhaps were a little bit more longer shelf life. Perhaps dug deeper, got into issues that were different, and magazines were, fairly early to the scene, I suppose, as far as print publications, although they really kind of got their heyday later, but they continue to be pretty powerful forms of a medium of things. So what I want to do here was, besides just kind of talking a little bit about it, because you can get into that with the reading and the book, I want to kind of just walk you through this module because it is maybe a little bit different. There are a few things that are a little bit different. There are a couple assignments that are unique to it. And so I just kind of want to run through it real quick. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Let me pull that up. And you come in here, we're already in module 2. You should be watching the video, which will be in here, although I haven't put it in because I'm currently making it. But if you go on, you got the checklist and the learning outcomes, which should be linked. And then if you come to books, what I've done this time is I've kind of indented each of these units so that, you can see here, there's some lectures I did, they're varying lengths, but all of them are fairly short, maybe 10 or 15 minutes the most. They're kind of just some little videos in which I talk about the ideas in the book or the reading. Like this one's 5 minutes, this one's 12 minutes. So watch through those, kind of that hits the key points, goes through what you'll read about. Below that, you'll also find the reading from the book, and then you'll find a quiz. And the quiz, keep in mind, you will have 30 minutes to complete 25 questions. I don't think there's much more about that other than, you have 30 minutes to complete 25 questions. They're from the reading. And the reason I do that is I kind of want to keep you on task, not coming to it unprepared. So that's the quiz. It's multiple choice. Not much more to say about that. So that should be fairly standard from here on out. Then you get down here to the discussion boards, and then at the bottom there's like an assignment. Let me go to the media deprivation paper before I do the other one. The media deprivation paper is essentially asking you to go 48 hours without using any media. I'm predominantly interested in you not engaging in electronic, don't email, text, call people, not that a lot of you call people, but, no TV, no video games. And the idea here is just to kind of get an idea, when you don't do it, how does that impact you? Now, if you have a job that requires you to use, media, then obviously, you have to do that. But I would also suggest that you do it at a time when you're not going to be working. Most of us will get 2 days off at some point. But I would also ask that you not do it at a time that's kind of irregular. You can if you want, but if you're going to go to, sometimes I've had students say, well, I was going to do it when I had to go to a wedding. I suppose that's okay, but a lot of times at a wedding, you want to take photos and you want to use your phone to text your friends, and you want to do things like that. And so, that's something to keep in mind, that those aren't going to be possibilities if you're really abstaining. So pick a time that's perhaps normal, but you're going to abstain. So it's to get an idea, and then it's going to ask you to write some stuff. And so what I usually suggest people do is, avoid as much as possible. You probably will cheat or slip up a few times. That's perfectly normal. Account for that. But what I find are some of the better papers are ones that kind of every once in a while reflect and say, I woke up and I did this. I normally would listen to the radio at this time. That was difficult. Kind of a journal. I went for a walk. I usually would have my iPod in, my earbuds in, and I would usually, walk the dog, do that. And I didn't have that. It was kind of weird. And, you can talk about how that was different, or how, driving to work without the radio, or, trying to concentrate without something else on, or realizing how much more quickly you got your work done one evening because of the fact you didn't do it. Usually those kinds of things are really the better papers. And then at the end, I want you kind of think about overall, but that's kind of the basic gist. I want 4 to 5 pages, double spaced, Times New Roman, 12-point font, kind of a standard paper. It's mainly a reflection, mainly you telling me how the experience went. You can then upload this. If you come down, let's see, if you come up, this is submitted. Let me bring this into student view. If you can then come up here and you can say, I want to submit it, and you can say, I'll submit a file. The only restriction is it has to be a docx, XLS, XLSX, text, PDF, JPEG, GIF. I suppose I could add RTF. I don't know if I will, but those would be, kind of keep in mind that, I kind of want it to be in a standard font. There's sometimes people upload files that, like pages, I have a hard time getting those to open. I can, it's not a huge deal, but I sometimes have to send that over to my phone or over to my iPad in order to open it. It just becomes kind of a pain. If you make a pages, you should be able to save it as a text or PDF. If you do Google Docs, you should be able to export as a Word. And you also should be able to get a free copy of Word as a student here at Lincoln Land. So that's basically the gist of that. I'll send some more reminders as we come along. That is actually due April 12th. It's not actually no, I'm sorry. This is due February 22nd. So anything else due is April 12th, sorry. This is due February 22nd this semester. And so, if you make sure to keep in mind that deadline is earlier than other deadlines. It's not the same as the deadline for the entire module. It's due a week before. And so you do need to make sure you are working on that ahead of time and setting aside 48 hours in order to do that. Then finally, I want to talk about the discussion boards. Discussions, if you click discussion boards, it doesn't say anything there. But if you look at the checklist, it will say you have to do 2 of 4. Don't do all 4. I only want you to do 2 of them. If you do more than 2, I won't count them. I won't give you extra credit just for doing it. Now you'll notice they're all marked as 20 points. What the idea there is, I had to assign points, and so I assigned them at 20, although, the grade book, because I have extra discussion boards, will add up to something like, 1150 or something like that in points. It'll add up to more than 1,000 points at the end of the semester. If you were to take a percent grade, your grade might be an 80%, but I'm grading it purely on the points. So if you, even though the point total really doesn't matter, the point total for the class is 1,000 points. It's just, I have some things that you have an option. You can do this one or that one. And I haven't quite figured out how to make it so that, both of them wouldn't count against you or on you on the final. Now, there's 4 discussion boards here. I'll just kind of run through them. The first one's about books. It asks you to actually go out to a bookstore, preferably somewhere like Barnes & Noble, but you could, maybe there's a Books A Million or something else like that around. You go there and you get an idea for, kind of layout, how their marketing's set up. And so after you've read the chapter on books and you see how bookstores work and how that's changed, you can kind of go out and see it. You could go to an independent bookseller, preferably not a used bookseller, just because those can be very different. But if you want to go to 2, I will let you go to 2 and I'll give you extra credit for going to 2, and you can kind of compare them, and that's nice. If you go to 2, I would also suggest you might go to somewhere like Walmart or Target. They actually sell a lot of books, and a lot of smaller communities, especially if you're going to Walmart or Target, I would suggest you go out to a smaller community, go to Taylorville, Litchfield, Jacksonville, something like that, Lincoln, something like that. Check out the books in that, because it'll be a little bit different than perhaps even Springfield, because, they don't have access to Barnes & Noble. And so the setup, they may have a little bit more expanded section. It's been a while since I've been in one of those, partially because of the pandemic, well, only because of the pandemic, but I always do remember, like when I'm in Taylorville, because I go there quite a bit, that, it always seems like they do have a little bit larger book section or a little bit more prominent one than at the Walmarts in Springfield. Now, so the idea there is it's not just an idea of you discussing something, it's actually applying it. We also have one about newspapers where I ask you to go get 2 copies of newspapers, 2 different newspapers, and see how the news differs, how much more depth, how much more breadth, how late it is, and kind of get an idea for how a newspaper provides a different lens for understanding the news. The next one is asking you to watch the movie Spotlight and to think about how newspapers function and how they fulfill a watchdog role. And then the magazine discussion is actually asking you to kind of go through 2 different magazines and ones that you were going to categorize. You're going to count the number of pages, count the number of ads, get some idea of how dominant they are in ads, what kind of content they have, if some of it would be called advertorial, and kind of think about that and then reflect upon some of the questions I have there. Now, because there's only 7 students in this class and there's 4 discussion boards, you have to do 2, it's quite possible that 4 people could choose to do discussion 1, 4 could choose to do discussion 2, and then 5 could choose to do discussion 3 as their second one. And, you know, and then like 1 person or 2 people decide to do magazines, something like that. You know, that's quite possible. It's possible 7 could do 1, 7 could do another, you know, 4 could do another one. Then, you know, you have like 1 or 2 people doing the other 2. That's fine. What I would say is I'd say you do need to reply to 2 of your classmates, but what you can do is you can I'm gonna pull myself back up here. What you can do is you can, instead of feeling the need to respond to the one you commented on, you could go to a discussion board you didn't take part in, you didn't do that initial response to, and comment on that. And so if you do 2 responses kind of to any, and then 2 responses to another one, or dialogue with people and do 1 or 2 replies back and forth, I'll count that as credit for participating in the discussion board. I won't, you know, necessarily hold it against you if nobody does your discussion board, but I would expect you to find another one and participate in it, 2 different ones. There's also some benefit in that if you did discussion on movies, the movie for Spotlight, but you didn't go to the bookstore, you could read what other people's impression was of the bookstore, or what other people's impression of magazines was, whatever it be, and you can kind of get a little bit more breadth of your experience because you're reading their posts even though you didn't write the post. And so I think it actually is really good if you just find things you didn't actually participate in. I will encourage you to do that. I think that's good. I think, you know, one aspect, part of the grade on this will be your engagement in the discussion. I suppose I could make it more, a little bit harder, but that's kind of where I'm going to stick, is just, you know, at least 2 people responding to. It doesn't have to be on that specific discussion board, but it does have to be on 2 different discussion boards. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just look forward to seeing your work.